So, Matt, I think it's time for me to reach for some sort of seasoning salt, perhaps some hot sauce, little black pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic as well. I need to season this crow. Khamzat Chimaev absolutely proved that he belonged in such a high profile spot. 17-second knockout of Gerald Meerschaert, one shot kill. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, I was wrong. I was straight up wrong. This guy's legit. Matt, where do we want to rank him now? Where does Chimaev belong in the welterweight rankings? Or excuse me,
All right.
this is a middleweight fight, so middleweight,
Yeah.
but whatever. Just the rankings period. Where do you put this man?
All right. First off, before I answer that, this was one of those fights, man, where I was really hoping the underdog showed up and made this interesting. And as soon as he got hit with that one punch, I was like, it was just so deflating. It was so deflating because I know Gerald Meerschaert is much better than that to get clipped like that. And I mean, that just shows you what type of animal we're dealing with here. Chimaev needs to be ranked in both divisions. I don't care if you put him at 15 in both, he needs to be ranked. And I know some people have said that that's kind of crazy to rank him this early. He's only had 3 fights. Two of them he's only had 2 in one division, right? So how do you rank him that quickly? Well, the UFC is no stranger to pushing guys that they believe are the real deal up the ladder very, very fast. And we have even former champions who got their title shots on their third fight. So to put him in the rankings is not all that crazy. Um, Top, yeah, 15. I would just put him right there, 15 on both divisions, and let's see how it shakes out from there. Because this guy has proven in his very, very short time in the UFC for the 2 month stint and 3 fights that he is the real deal. Not just with his skills inside the cage, like it's different. It's different. Like we've seen that the previous UFC hype jobs, right? Where
Mhm.
they try to push these guys on us, and it's like, okay, yeah, he got the win, but we don't see the but with this guy right now. He looks every bit the part, man, and it's just scary. So I'm saying put him at 15 in both divisions just for the starters. And no, don't put him in there against an older guy with one foot out the door and Damian Maya. So yeah, how do
Yeah,
you feel about this?
I feel that Damian Maya should be kept far, far away from this man.
100%.
Being this close to the end of his career, I mean, this is someone who was not too long ago asking to have his final bout against Diego Sanchez, and that would be a fun fight. Stylistically, should be a very interesting thing to see. And where these gentlemen are, as far as the longevity that they've had, and the sort of fights that they've had over the years, makes perfect sense to go ahead and call it a swan song for both of them. Khamzat Chimaev just doesn't fit into that equation at all. This is someone who does deserve to be ranked in both divisions. And quite frankly, I mean, we've seen, like you said, we've seen the hype jobs before. We've seen them, but we've also seen the UFC be right about certain people they push. Now, we can look back to the difference between the hype trains that we've seen in the past. Namely, like Paige Van Zandt, Sage Northcutt. Those are probably
Right.
the first 2 examples that come to mind when you think of some like people who the promotion was just really, really backing, and you just wondered why. Um,
CM Punk?
you see him Punk, yeah, another great example. And those 3 names had intangibles that didn't involve fighting.
Yeah.
While I'll give CM Punk credit for jumping in the cage and taking on such a tough challenge twice, I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. However, he was there because he was a celebrity in a combat adjacent sport or entertainment or whatever you want to call professional wrestling. Um, then Sage Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt looked a particular way. They fit a physical profile that they figured, hey, they could slap it on a Mattel logo and sell it. Um,
And hey, it worked out for a little bit.
and yeah, and it worked for a little bit. However, the fighting had to catch up with that, and that just didn't seem to be in the cards for at least Paige Van Zandt at the levels that they were trying to push her. Um, but this is different. This is more along the lines of the Israel Adesanya hype train, the
Mhm.
Conor McGregor hype train. of the people that the promotion really got behind and really decided to back. And then and it was because they fought so well. And perhaps the personality aids in that, but you don't have the question mark of what this man can do in the cage necessarily. It's 17-second knockout against a veteran who we thought at least would give him some bumps and bruises.
Facts.
Right. So I think at this point you just take you just take the training wheels off, man. Um, Put him up against a top 15 opponent now and just let it happen. And it needs to not be a Damian Maya. It needs to not be someone on the way out the door, as you said before. It needs to be somebody who is either the solid gatekeeper or someone who is on the rise as well. Like I think if we're gonna stick with middleweight, I think a guy like a Brad Tavares makes a whole lot of sense. That seems to be something that I could get behind. Even like I wouldn't want to see him against like a Chris Weidman right now. I wouldn't want to see that because Weidman is on his way out essentially by the way he's performed as of late. If we're going welterweight, um, hey, maybe give me Michael Chiesa. That just Yes, please. Michael Chiesa versus Khamzat Chimaev. I like it.
Hmm.
It-
It's
it's
interesting.
right. So we gotta think bigger with this person. It's so rare that a lot of us who you and I are two people who are vocally very critical of the UFC a lot of times, and rightfully so. They were
Put
right.
it mildly.
To put it mildly, yes, they
Yeah.
were right this time, and it's time to eat this crow, and I saved you a piece. So
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't necessarily not eating it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was after the first fight, when he was walking to the cage and they called him Khabib 2.0, I was like, what? And then they said, let's get it on. I was like, oh, okay. I see what you mean. Um, and then he did it again the next week. I was like, okay, all right, this is real. And then he starches Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds. Yeah. If you're gonna go 170, the guy that we were talking about for Tyron to potentially fight at this point, give him Luque. I want to see
Ooh.
how he does against a real striker that's going to
Mm,
not go away. You know, we know he's got the wrestling, so let's get a clash of styles going. If you're going to do 170, if you're going to do 185, I mean, you've got a lot of options there. Um, Man, some of those guys that are at the lower end of the top 15 though are guys that we really haven't seen much from. A guy like Marvin Vittori, that's a
mm.
guy that's super confident. Two super confident guys going in there that both don't believe they can be knocked off their pivot. So, I mean, if you're going to do 185, let's do that because that's a guy who's still not necessarily. He's still very much in the mix, in my opinion. He's still trying to climb that ladder. So, you want to try to climb the ladder, try to stop the hype train. Now, in terms of you were mentioning names a second ago about uh, names that the UFC have really been getting behind in terms of hype jobs and things like that. Well, I want to talk about like one particular a lot of people always forget about, and that's Brock Lesnar. That's a guy who came over from WWE with virtually no experience, really fighting outside of his collegiate wrestling career. Right?
Mhm.
Obviously, WWE champion doesn't carry too much weight inside the UFC cage, but this is a guy they brought in and won one, lost one, got a title shot, or lost one, won one, and then got a title shot. Right?
Right.
3 fights in. I know the heavyweight division's a different animal, but still, he got his title shot, won, and then won some and defended his belt, right? Holly Holm got her title shot. She had a lot of hype behind her as well. It wasn't astronomical levels because the person holding the belt at the time was Ronda. She was she was carrying the torch for literally the entire promotion and everything that surrounded it. So she got her title shot in her third fight, went out there, got the job done. One of the biggest upsets in the history of the sport. And hey, she wasn't necessarily a hype job, right? I
Right.
remember I remember saying the day the UFC signed her, I was like, if anybody's beating Ronda, it's her. Sure enough, 3 fights later, head kick heard around the world, right?
Right.
So it's not like you said, man. They're always all the hype jobs aren't always necessarily, just hype. Some of these guys can really go. And you look at Chimaev, he has all of the indicators that say that this dude can really go. So I'm saying let's rank him up, man. Rank him up. Let's see what happens. Because if you keep this hype train going and he continues to go out there and knock dudes off, even if it's a decision fight, but if he goes out there and gets a win, climb him up the ladder, climb him up the ladder. I am ready to see him against any of these guys, but I'm not ready to say top 5 just yet. But yeah, definitely put him against a ranked opponent. Let's see if he still is able to go out there and do this sort of thing. And then if he does, he's on the very short list for, number one contendership.
Absolutely. Now, the final thing I'll throw at you on this topic, Matt. Now, the UFC is headed to Abu Dhabi. Some of our friends and colleagues that are going to be covering those events live. They've already they're probably on the planes right now as we speak, or settling into the UFC's compound sponsored by the Abu Dhabi government. Now, Matt, now, do you think that Chimaev will find himself somewhere in this? I believe it's a 5-week run on Fight Island.
He should. He should. Why not? He should definitely be out there. He should be in the mix, man.
The reason why I ask is because now we know he's game. This is a guy who took 2 fights within a matter of 10 days. So we know he's game for this. And I believe holds the record now for the fastest the fastest path to 3 UFC wins, 66 days, if I'm remembering from the broadcast correctly. Now, I asked that because who is going to want to fight this man on such short?
That's becomes the question, right? I think when you start getting closer to the guys that are, like I said, in those top 15, you see bigger, like you see the confidence, like there on guys. Like a Marvin Vittori is going to be that type of guy that's like, I'll shut that dude up. Come on, let's go. You'll see guys with that type of attitude. Guys outside of the top 15 where they're trying to crack into that top 15 and that extra money that comes with being in the top 15 and the rankings and that extra super lucrative Reebok pay. Those guys may be like, whoa, let's see here. Let's pause the brakes on that one, right? Let's pump the brakes on that one. But you got some guys in that top 15 that will step in there with that dude to really see what he's all about. Because a 17-second knockout isn't going to impress some of these guys. You're going to be like, okay, his opponent didn't get anything off on him. That won't happen to me. I'm going to step in there. Let's do it. So I think it'd be really, really interesting. In terms of who's going to be out there, like, I don't know. Like, who's going to be out there on Fight Island? Like, it would be super crazy if something happened to, like, Acosta or something, right? And he filled in. That would just be insane.
Yeah.
That would be super insane. But again, I don't want to say we've seen crazier in the UFC, but I wouldn't put it past him. Let's say if something happens, if he's out there, Costa, something happens with him, he pops for COVID or he misses weight or whatever. Could you imagine if Chimaev is there and he's like, hey guys,
Like, here
I'm
I
here.
am.
I'm 190 right now. I can cut 5 pounds in an hour. Let's go. I think get me on the scale.
Yeah. That would be an interesting scenario, the likes of which we haven't seen since Joe Soto. So,
Exactly, right?
yeah. So, like I said, stranger things have happened. But I think it's safe to say, regardless of what weight class or what person is standing across from him, 2 things I think we can say with certainty is that the next time we see him in the cage is going to be somewhere within this 5-week span on Fight Island, and it needs to be someone in the top 15, 170 or 185.
100%. 100%, man. Listen, there's, like we've said, to wrap it all up, man, there's hype trains where you can really see, the chips in the paint on that engine as it's rolling through. This guy, I haven't seen it yet. That's a bright, shiny train rolling through right now. So put him in there. Let him keep steamrolling ahead.